Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade.
We chronicle the distinct memories of our childhood in our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s, which takes you on a notably historic journey through that often forgotten decade. We also want to hear about your experiences during the 1950s. We will feature guests whose special stories of that decade will bring to mind magical moments of reflection, some with tears, some with smiles, but above all, a good dose of laughter.
We would like you to chat with us as we bring to mind the sights and sounds so familiar to that time in history. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hello, friends. So great to have you back with us again on this number 60 episode, Jackie, of our 1950s Fun Chat. And it hasn't ever been fun. You know, this first year plus, we have learned stories about so many wonderful people who either lived during the 1950s, were born during the 1950s, or whose lives have been influenced by someone who lived in the 1950s. Such a memorable time for so many people. And really, that whole generation has had a phenomenal effect on the life of this country and the world, because we visited with folks who grew up outside of the United States. And it just has been so wonderful to do this. So Jackie, tell us more about this channel that we have and how people can subscribe to it.
I will do that. Yes, please. I would like our viewers to look at the bottom of the screen, please, and you'll see www.whilethewindmillwatch.com. That is our website that we are inviting you to check out. It has many things to do with the book, the vendors, the authors, and we invite you to take a look there. And also, as you're perusing your screen, look at the upper right-hand corner. You'll see a beautiful North Dakota sunset that wraps around our book. And it is, of course, the While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s. So we also want you to note there's a little white dot in the lower right-hand corner. That indicates a National Independent Press Award in the regional nonfiction category as the distinguished favorite. So that is the first of we hope, several awards to come to the book. And now, as they say, without further ado, let us go to the Fun Chat, and I will introduce to you Larry Peck. Mr. Larry Peck was born in 1957 in Clinton, a rural southwest Oklahoma town. He was raised on a farm which produced cattle, hogs, and chickens. Larry graduated from Oklahoma State University, where he met his wife, Mary. He began his FFA teaching career in Sentinel, Oklahoma, where the membership showed sheep, cattle, hogs, and goats. The chapter was noted for its very strong leadership program. Now, Mary was not only a personal partner, but also a professional partner in that she was the county 4-H agent in the education of the rural youth. Mary also became a partner in creating a magazine called the Ag Youth Magazine in 1988. She edits the beautiful, well-organized publication that is now in its 35th year. The professional duo recently acquired the long-running, and that's been since 1902, weekly newspaper, the Sentinel Leader. Larry and Mary feel blessed to have worked with so many kids and families throughout the years of FFA and 4-H involvement. So just to keep their hand in the ag business on a personal level, however, they also run 150 head Simmental Angus cow-calf operation. Larry and Mary have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Larry, we welcome you to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, hi, girls.
Hi.
Nice to have you with us.
Yes. So we are going to begin with a really broad question. And since this is your story, you can pick whatever pops into your mind. This program centers on the decade of the 1950s.
Right.
So we're asking, what are some of the experiences and or some of the people that you can credit as the main influences of that time that have carried over to where you are today?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm honored to be with you two guys. I'm just telling you, I just feel blessed to be here and talk about the 50s and early 60s and some of the things that molded this great country agriculturally and everything else. But when it comes right down to it, as far as who influenced me the most, obviously it's got to be my parents. My dad was a Korean vet, and when he come home, he had us kids, and he bought a very small farm, and always a joke about it. He tried to starve us to death out there. And because if you've been to Southwest Oklahoma, you know good and well it forgets to rain here quite often.
Yeah.
So with that being said, my parents obviously in the church and my ag teacher, there was a pair of those that were really influential to me and let me travel the world, if you will. And that being the United States to shows, and I got to see the different parts of the country, and that's what set the tone for me.
Okay. Larry, tell us what ranching was like in the 50s and 60s and how, if it did, how did it differ from what we know now in the ranching business?
It wasn't a lot different because you guys being from North Dakota, by the way, I can't say Dakota like you guys do, but if I could, I know the area because I looked it up one time when Janine and Fred were talking about it, where you guys come from. It was dry there at times. It just forgot to rain. And my country down here, the Southwest, we were in a desert type area, and it forgot to rain here. In the 70s, the 50s were terrible. The 30s were worse, but the 70s were bad. And then, of course, we had to run there in the 11, and we're in a terrible drought right now. But something we have to get used to. So, like I said, we didn't ranch a bunch. What we did, like I said, we had a small farm. And what we had to do was my dad actually worked in town. And my brother and I and my sister, but my brother's older, especially him and I, we broke a lot of horses. That's how we made a lot of money. We broke horses. We saddled 4 horses a day every day before we went to school and milked a cow or two. Thank God it wasn't 50 of them. But
I think a lot of people might have thought that.
And my FFA project was hogs, and we got pretty good at raising hogs and good hogs. And like I said, we was on a very small farm, and it's 160 acres. And my dad had give $37,000 for it. It had a house, and they said we'd never get it paid off. And mom and dad went to work, and through the breaking the horses, run a few cows, and trying to make a living with some stalker calves, which was buying some 4 weights and run them on wheat pasture till they were 700 pounds. My family made it work, but we was raised mostly gathering cattle. That was a big chore for us. And we didn't get to go to town very much, other than the church on Sunday and school. And so the obvious thing is, thanks to 4-H and FFA, I got to go to some stock shows. People would take you. Our schools actually hauled you at that time, and we could load up. And I go to places like Kansas City in 73 and 4 and 5. I got to show 3 years in Kansas City, and you just can't believe there's a town like Kansas City. The first time I went to Oklahoma City was to show my pig, and I know that just sounds Janine knows me really well, and she knows I'll travel all over the world to look at good livestock. And
that's for sure.
But those first experiences come through my school system and through my parents allowing us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I've always thought was interesting was that the school systems in Oklahoma are very supportive of the ag programs and of the growth and potential for rural kids in those ag and FFA programs and but the branching out, it's beyond the classroom. And some of our viewers, Larry, might not even have an inkling what it's like to show livestock. Can you tell us about that?
Well, my parents hadn't shown livestock, of course, Of course, they was raised during a time when going to church or school 3 miles away was a long ways.
Yes.
And they hadn't shown livestock. But as we started growing up, my parents seen the possibility that we could better ourselves by actually buying some stock. At that time, it was very cheap, and we would feed it just whatever. There wasn't specialized feeds. And then we got to travel, and it took a lot of work. At that time, we was walking them a lot. We were brushing daily. The cattle people, I'd done some heifers for a while. We worked the hair with the curry comb and rinsed them. And there was just a lot of work involved. But at the end of the day, you were lucky enough that the school provided a large pickup and a large trailer. Our school had 2 of them. And we would actually take our animals and we would go show it, like Oklahoma City, Tulsa. We went to Louisiana, we went to Phoenix, we went to Kansas City, and even our coaches allowed us to do that. I played a lot of sports, and they thought it was very important also. So the school found it to be very important, and I don't know what started that generation or why, but since then it's just totally grown and still growing, and I've been lucky to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. And at that time, was it just the advisors who traveled with you, who were your chaperones, or did parents go along as well?
Oh, there was no chaperones.
Oh.
We did have, when we went to Kansas City, we had a friend of ours, one of the boys' dads. We thought he had the Napa store, and we thought he was very successful because he had a pickup with a camper, and he took all the cooking stuff. We slept down on the yards. We slept outside on the tie-outs. Yeah. And he fed us 3 meals a day out of the back of the pickup. And he had a cook stove, and all of us kids, there was about 15 of us went that first year. And it was a little cold. Kansas City can get cold because that's this weekend. As you know, it can get wet. It was real wet the one year. But we just had a great time, and we got to meet people from all over the world. You will remember the Scotch caps. I bought an orange one there with my hard-earned money. Nobody was proud of it. And when I got to college, Mary, I think, stole it. But Fred wore one forever. But anyway, we had a good time, and I was lucky to be very successful at Kansas City. And I guess that's probably the type of trip that moved me into my career. I had a chance to play some sports. I had a chance to go academically, but I wanted to be an ag teacher. I knew what I wanted to do. And with that, I found my wife at OSU, and the rest is history. So
there is more to the story too of in FFA and in 4-H, and that has to do with leadership. And how did those organizations help you explore the life you had that was brewing inside you as a leader?
Well, I didn't know I had the ability to be a leader, to be honest with you. I had never been around anything like that. But obviously, I went on to be an officer in my FFA and got to go to national convention, and that was eye-opening. State conventions. Like I said, it gave me a chance to travel off that farm. I was tired of plowing. We didn't have a lot, but it was too much for me. I was tired of saddling horses. And I'm just glad to be off the farm because that's what we did. And it was just nice to go do that. And what was neat about that, and Janine, you'll know this, I was very fortunate, our family was, and blessed to judge livestock all over the nation. Actually got to judge 21 state fairs. And when I was in high school, we had a really good judging team, and I never did make the team. So that tells you how good our team was. I wasn't good enough.
Yes. Lots of advantages to being in those organizations.
Oh my! Oh yeah, for sure.
So, were you in 4-H as well, or just FFA when you were?
Oh no, I was in 4-H. I did the demonstrations and the speeches, and I can go back. I was Tiny Tim at the Share of the Fun, which I won, by the way. You can see me being pictured as Tiny Tim, right? Yeah, I was good. Yeah, it was tiptoe through the tulips. Yeah, remember the song? And I actually won. That's the first thing I ever won in my life, to be honest with you. So, but anyway.
You just never know.
Yeah,
So
good
I'm
memories.
I'd like to move ahead now, please.
Okay.
In creating a magazine, that is thinking outside the box. I mean, that's something maybe as you were in your youth, you never thought that would be you. So tell us how the Ag Youth magazine came about.
Well, it's not my doings. Once again, it was the good Lord blessed me and I married correctly. Okay.
All right.
My wife is smarter than me by far.
Mhm.
And she was a 4-H agent at the time. We had an oil bust in Oklahoma. Everything runs on the oil.
Yeah.
And we had oil. You have oil booms and oil bust. We had an oil bust. And all the counties had to lay off their 4-H agents just to make a budget.
Mm. Wow.
She got laid off. We were at home right there after Easter. One morning I wake up and she's been out of bed for a long time. And she has taken a grocery sack and cut it in half, folded it out, and on there wrote a picture of Oklahoma, the state, and then it said Ag Youth Oklahoma style. And she said, "This is what I'm going to do." Well, being as I want to stay married at that point, I decided that that's what we were going to do. We had no clue what we were doing. There was not such thing as a computer.
Mhm.
Everything was cut and paste. Cut and paste with glue with wax, and we went to work producing the first one. She did, and we went from there. But it was all it was just a blessing from God. It's something that has allowed us to stay in this industry and meet people like Janine and Fred and the family. And I continue to be an ag teacher to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
Until we got it up and running good, and it's bigger and better than it's ever been now. And I don't know, it's just something that's just mind-boggling that we did that.
And
I looked online.
Yeah. Oh, your readership certainly expands beyond the state of Oklahoma.
Yes. We have it's read in 32 states now, and and like I said, we make friends all over, and we get articles in. We mainly concentrate on Kansas, Oklahoma, and our bordering areas, the panhandle of Texas. We try to stay regional there. And a lot of publications have fell by the wayside. That's why we weren't scared to get the newspaper. We knew if we could tell a positive story about good kids, good people, good families, and stay positive and stay hooked, that our advertisers, our subscribers would stay hooked with us, and they have. We even increased subscribers during the pandemic.
Oh, wonderful.
Figure that.
I looked at your magazine online. It is a beautiful publication. It has a lot of variety, and the colors are just so intense. And then I was thinking, I was kind of struck by, you have things there for different levels of readers or people who maybe can't read. For instance, that little montage of cartoon animals there. Kids can color them, or they can find the two that are alike or something, whatever.
Sure.
And then,
for little guys.
And then the find a word, in or several 20 words or so in that jumble.
I don't know. It's just evolved. I don't know. I can't even tell you how it happened. Mary is behind it 110%. She's the one that actually does the computer work. And obviously, without her and the family support and stuff, we never got it done. But she's good. I mean, there's nobody better, because not only did she start when we were actually scissor cutting and pasting, now she's up to, we got 4 banks of computers in this place. So she grew with the timing. The timing is just tremendous.
So those two things for children, their activities, that has evolved. That wasn't.
Oh, no, that wasn't the beginning. We did that because the kids at Oklahoma City at the stock show were bored and getting in trouble. And so one day at our booth, one year we had a coloring contest for the little kids. We set up tables and crayons, and Mary said, "God, that went so good. Let's put it in the book."
Yeah.
So it became a part of the magazine after that year.
Yes.
I don't know. The big deal about the magazine, if and you guys can remember this, to be on the cover of the Rolling Stones. If you're on the cover of Ag Youth, you're a rock star.
Okay.
You have done it. You are there. That means you're looking up at the judge. Your eyes are focused in, and you are serious and game is on. But to be on the cover, there's kids that come by today that are in their 30s and 40s, or 30s at least, and say, hey, I was on your cover. I mean, it's just the biggest deal for them. And we didn't ever expect that.
No.
We wanted to spotlight kids on the cover. If we had and a calendar on the back, and that's how that started.
So Janine, do you know of anyone in particular who was on the cover? Youth?
Not I can't think offhand. You know, it's been a while ago since we've really been involved in showing, and not being from Oklahoma, Larry, you probably focus on putting Oklahoma kids on the front on your front cover.
We actually don't know who they are, and if I'm getting too dark here, I can kick on some lights.
Yeah,
please.
You are dark.
And Mary, come here. And
we need a lighting expert.
We don't focus on anybody. Mary actually selects those kids. She selects them, and just by the way their eyes are looking at a judge or looking at a project. Yep.
Okay.
Let me grab this light.
You bet.
Hey, how's that?
Good.
Oh, better.
I guess the sun was setting where you are, huh?
The sun has went down in western Oklahoma.
Thank you. Well, I think too. You mentioned you've got a swimming pool close by, and there was a lot of light coming in from there, and we took care of that. Well, now when the sun is setting, it made a difference. You were slowly going.
We have both problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Good deal. Okay. It seems to me you mentioned earlier in our conversation before we started recording about a dog named Stubbs. I'm curious about Stubbs.
Well, Stubbs was the most awesome dog there ever was. And to tell you the story, my mom and dad, when Dad got back from Korea, they rented a house in Clinton, which is right up the road here from me and where I was raised out in the country. But it was a rent house, and you got to remember now, I was in the second grade, and as a second grader, there was on our little block there, there was a housing addition that was very old, and it was only a block long. It was called Fifth Street, and on Fifth Street, there was 14 of us kids about the same age.
Wow.
So we played we played football, we played basketball, we threw fishing poles in the front out in the street. I mean, we shut down the street daily after school. And we walked to school together, and we all just gathered and went to school at the same time. And we went to a little school called Nance Elementary, which ended up raising some of the best kids ever come out of Clinton, by the way. And so Mom and Dad said they bought this farm. And I thought, oh, my God. I mean, I'm leaving I had all these buddies. I mean, I was into it. We were playing football in the street, and I just couldn't imagine having to go out there by myself, because at that time when you went to the farm, you were pretty much isolated. I mean, you were gone, until the bus showed up. And so I told Mom and Dad that I didn't want to go. Well, down the street, where we on the way to school, there was a dog chained up down there to a tree. And I told Dad, I said, give me that dog. And so he went down there and we got the dog, and that's Stubbs. And Stubbs, he had a tail. He was, I don't know what he was. He was meaner than crap, by the way. And I mean, he was mean, and he'd fight anything. I could sick him on anything. And Stubbs had about 9 or 10 lives before he finally died killing a cat. He had a stroke. But at that time, we went to the farm. I had him for 10 years. He died when I was a junior in high school. And
what made him so mean? And was he mean?
Well, he wasn't mean. He was a happy-go-lucky guy until I said sick him, and then it was on. The only thing that ever whipped him was a badger, and he finally gave up. But he would fight anything. We had several surgeries done on him. A boar ripped his whole side open, and his stomach fell out and everything, and we didn't have any money, so we tied him to our top of our show box, and we sewed him up ourselves. Swallowed a hook on chicken liver. He got run over by 2 wheat trucks. He got kicked in the head 4 different times by horses and knocked him out, but he always come back. Like I said, he was just tougher than tough. And if you seen a snake, it was real easy. Stub would kill a snake, just say sick him, and it was over. Snakes,
Okay, will you
anything.
back up, please? And how could you just say, Dad, I want that dog? Well, here it is. He was changed. Whose dog was it to begin with?
It was a neighbor down the next block or 2 down, and my granddad had a rent house, and he lived in that rent house. It was my granddad's. It was on a street called No Way, and my granddad had this rent house there, and that he had bought when they first moved off the farm from up by Leedy. He'd bought this house, and then they made a rent house out of it. But this dog was. He was not a happy camper when I got him, and me and him got really close, real close.
Okay, so the owner was living in this rental house?
Yeah. And I don't know how Dad did it. I don't know how it happened, but one day Dad come home from work and Stubbs was in the car. So
you weren't going to go to the country,
right?
Did you eventually? You said that. So
right.
But you eventually did.
Which we did. We didn't have a choice. We were going. At that time, your mom and dad didn't give you choices. I mean, they didn't ask us what we were going to do. We were told we better do what we do. My mom and dad was very disciplinarian.
How far away from town was that farm?
Oh, we were 3.5 miles from town. But like I just said, we didn't even have a pickup. We just had one car. I mean, and when Dad went to work, you're there. I mean, you had your assignments to do that day, and you were there. It wasn't like my brother was older, 3 years older. My sister come along, she's 8 years younger. So she didn't get some of that really cool stuff we got to do. So we had to get our chores done before we could goof off.
What led you into raising cattle or having a cow-calf operation that you do now?
Well, I always wanted a cow-calf operation. When I was probably 10 or 11, Dad bought 6 black baldy cows and calved them out, and then we sold them. And I just thought that was as cool as it gets. There was this big old ugly cow, and she had this really cool little calf. You usually don't get much better than that. But at my house, what we did, my dad would go to the auction or have somebody go to auction for him, and we bought all the sick ones, the babies, the little stuff like that. And we took care of them, and then we would put them out on a wheat pasture. And then come spring, we would take whatever groups they were together, the ones that weighed the same, and we'd go to the market with them. And then he'd buy more sick ones or babies. And we had a lot of them that we had on a bottle. We were a pretty low-priced operation, but it worked well. It did. It really worked looking back. And like I said, and that pretty much drove me to go to college, because someday I wanted to be able to do that. And there was at that time, we was in a drought. The oil boom was the wrong way. The oil had busted. And there was a whole set of us in that class that were very successful and have been successful. Matter of fact, I always kid them, I'm the loser of that class. And them guys, they were really, really went on to be very successful. One of the top heart surgeons in the world that started the Oklahoma Heart Hospital was my next door neighbor and still my best friend, Dr. Schmidt.
That is cool. That's cool.
And he started the heart hospital there. He sits on the board up in your country in Minnesota, the name of that hospital.
Mayo.
He sits on the board at Mayo. One of the guys who invented the stent. One of them guys, because he thought farmers ought to be able to do that instead of opening them up, because the farmers would not stay off the tractor, and he couldn't keep them at home. So he was one of the ones that did that. That was my best friend and next door neighbor, president of my FFA when I was the vice president.
Okay. Okay.
But there's a whole set of them kids that was raised right then, and we was all raised a lot alike, just hard work, didn't know any better. And then we went off to college, and like I said, some of them have been very successful. So,
well, I don't think you have anything to be ashamed of, Larry.
No, I don't. No, I'm not. No, I've been blessed, as you know. I feel very blessed. I had some really good FFA kids, and my kids are good. But we were very successful in what we did, and I liked doing that.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
it doesn't pay a whole bunch, but teaching is a great profession. So,
Well, viewers, we've been visiting with Larry Peck from Sentinel, Oklahoma, a great livestock man, a great leader of youth, especially in the state of of Oklahoma, rather. And it's been just a great learning of how the 1950s and the 1960s was so influential in his life. But what I want to ask you, Larry, is can you think of one particular item or trait from that early life that you lived in Oklahoma that is still been so influential with you in your adult life?
probably the main trait, and especially now in the industry I'm in, is just simply sticking with it. I know my dad allowed after he bought that farm, his dad said, of course, he was at an auction, and his dad, my grandpa Peck, was fairly put out with him and said, "Hey, you'll never pay for that, never, and there's no way you can make a living doing that." And obviously, just time to hook up and go to work and keep fighting and fighting and fighting it until you make it work. And that's kind of been our motto around here. Just stay hooked, get up every morning, put your jeans on and go to work. And hey, Janine knows as well as I do, if you get beat at the stock show one day, you're going to have to beat me the next day, because I'm liable to be back, and I'm going to be back better. And that's kind of been my theory forever. I'm coming at you. I had a good coach in high school that preached that. They may beat you today, but they got to beat me again tomorrow. And I know that's an old saying, but there's a lot of truth in that. And obviously, we've been blessed along the way to surround ourselves with some really good people. I came to a good town with some good people, some great kids. And that really helps. I mean, really.
Yes.
I've been blessed to have good people around me.
Okay.
I really have.
In that early childhood of yours, can you think what's a highlight of one fun memory?
Oh, the fun memory is real simple. Fishing on the Ouachita River. We set bank lines in the river and caught channel catfish and put them in the freezer for the winter. And there's nothing I'd rather do than to this day, I like to fish and hunt. And we did both. And that time we had a lot of quail. And man, if Grandpa Peck took us quail hunting, no matter how little we was, he was pretty sure that me and my brother needed to go. And at that time, we only had single cab pickups. Where we hunted was two places. One was 20 miles away and one was 50 away. And no matter how cold, we ride in the back of the pickup. And like I said, the fishing and hunting part was something we look forward to on a constant basis. We kept bank lines in the river all summer long, and we'd run them when we could. And we sang crawdads to do that, and we put them in the freezer. Good catfish in the middle of winter is pretty good. My mom made catfish gravy. You haven't ate till you've had good catfish gravy, and quail gravy. Well, quail gravy is maybe even better. So now that's the fun things I remember. That's the only time that my grandparents, especially, and my dad and mom let their guard down. The rest of the time, they were pretty serious people. And I was always pretty much a cut up and usually in trouble. So I would put that always in trouble. And
I couldn't believe that.
My teachers back, some of them are passed away now, but they still laugh at me because I went into teaching. They just can't believe it. I mean,
our guest today has been Larry Peck from Sentinel, Oklahoma. Just so much fun learning about your background and where you are right now, and with your wonderful Ag Youth magazine and your love for ag youth and the state of Oklahoma. Thank you so much, Larry, for being our guest.
Cool. Once again, I can't wait for a movie. I just can't believe what you guys have done. I feel like I shouldn't be talking to you two. And great job, you guys, to have that vision and that focus and to stay hooked and that gum. I can just remember Janine being the most religious person I ever met, and being out there in the barn, and you couldn't tell whether she was a man or a woman because all the clothes she had on, and she was bundled up, and working her tail off and had those two great little kids running by her side. And I just can't imagine we're sitting here talking today, Janine.
we are all equal. Really, we are all equal.
That's cool. That's way cool. Your book was great, by the way. I love your book.
Thank you.
I love your book.
Well, folks, we will come back next week with another great guest for you to enjoy their story about life in the 1950s and even now beyond that time. And, it's really interesting that, again, I reiterate the influence of the 1950s, that decade, that sandwiched in between the Depression and World War II and then going into the Vietnam War and integration, and where we even had to be concerned about the bombs coming into our school as we were hiding under our
That was me, by the way.
Yeah. Hide under that desk.
Yes, that was something else.
Get under that desk. That was going to be a lot of good, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's right. Well, as I was hunched under the desk, I thought, this is really silly. What's not going to work? Were they kidding? But okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
until next time, Jackie, how about closing up our program?
Okay, so I'm going to remind you all to put that red subscribe button and that thumbs up button, and tell your friends, even your relatives, about the 1950s Fun Chat.
Yes.
We'll see you guys down the road.
Yep. We'll see you next time, folks.
We'll see you down the road.